Welcome to our CPD talk for tonight. I'm Declan from the UAE Regional Group of the Institution of Structural Engineers. This is our CPD talk number 8 of the year. We hold the talks usually about once a month, and all our talks are saved on our regional group's YouTube channel in case you miss it the first time. We also have a sponsor. You'll see the logo in the background, which is Hempel. Please visit their website. They supply intumescent, durability and fireproof coatings for steelwork. So tonight's talk, I'm glad to introduce Rasha from Asite. And she's going to talk about sustainable design and construction metrics and how to track and optimize your buildings or your development's carbon footprint using Asite and Repo 3D. So over to you now, Rasha. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Declan. Am I audible?
Yes, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Declan. Hi and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this webinar talk today. I'm really excited about the topic of this webinar, and I'm really excited about the construction and its environmental impact. So I look forward to engaging with all of you. Just a bit about myself. My name is Rasha Abed. I'm a senior consultant at Asite. I have over 13 years of experience in the field of BIM and digital delivery and construction. I joined Asite in 2021. Where I'm currently managing our product implementation and, of course, supporting with our product development. Just a little bit brief about the company. So Asite was established in the UK in 2002, and since then it has expanded to multiple regions and has offices around the world in North America, Australia, India, Middle East, and of course in UK and Europe. So just to give you a quick brief about what is Asite and what is 3D Repo. So Asite is a cloud-based collaboration platform. This is where the clients and their stakeholders would work collaboratively on the project. And of course, as part, like Asite provides the CD as main product, but we do offer a lot more products that cater to different needs for the clients. 3D Repo was one of our recent additions to the Asite ecosystem and Asite product family. So 3D Repo is an online platform that helps manage the building information modeling or the BIM data. This is where the teams can view the models on the web, see the data, exchange information, and highlight certain issues within the model. All of this is web-based, so that will make sure that it's real-time collaboration. Now, if we want to start talking about the subject of this presentation, and of course, if we want to start looking and discussing numbers. Of course, everybody is aware that climate change is one of the most urgent challenges that is facing the globe currently. Of course, the Earth, is warming up due to the excess emission, excess energy that is produced as part of the different industries and businesses. And if you look at the statistics that are presented on the slide, you see that the built environment is contributing around 39% of the total global emissions. That is an extremely high number, actually. So if we consider 39%, and of course, if we consider that 31 of that is coming from the materials alone, it warrants and it pushes us actually as construction professionals to take better care of our design, of our construction processes, of our methodology, implementations, and requirements, of course, to try and reduce the emissions that are part of the construction energy and hopefully contributing in a better way towards improving the issue with the climate change. As most of us are aware, the COP28, the global conference to tackle the climate change is happening in the UAE this year. And it's happening, I think, towards the end of November. It's taking place in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. So COP28, or COP in general, is an annual convention. This is where the UN parties, would meet and tackle the issue of the climate change. And again, if you consider the construction contribution into the issue of the climate change, we have multiple elements that we can take into consideration. We can do better actually as construction professionals. So we can ask ourselves questions like, how can I reduce the carbon or decarbonize my construction process? How can I make my buildings more energy efficient or resilient? How can I develop new materials that are more sustainable? All of these questions, and of course many more, actually are really crucial for us to tackle in order to see how we can do better when it comes to climate change. So this is where Asite actually took the strategy and this approach and started seeing on how we can take elements as part of the ESG concept, and try implementing it as part of our product and the platform. So when we consider ESG, so ESG stands for, so ESG has the elements of environmental, social, and governance. So environmental, so this is where we tackle energy production, material selection, water management, and waste management. The social aspect of ESG is where we take care of the well-being of our workers and ensure the health and safety of our workers, and of course the inclusion and the diversity of the workplace. Governance, this is where we look at the performance in general, we monitor the performance, ensure adherence to regulations, and of course ensure stakeholder engagement. So let's start tackling one of the most urgent issues. So we'll start talking about embodied carbon. So embodied carbon, as probably many of you know, is defined as the carbon footprint of any project during its construction, of course, and also it includes the carbon footprint that is produced as part of the maintenance and the demolition of the project. If you see from the image here, you can see that actually most of the construction or the embodied carbon that is part of the building is produced during the manufacture and construction of the building. So actually, this is where it started to take a look at, for example, how can we calculate this one and how we can do better when it comes to do better when it comes to calculating embodied carbon. So to decarbonize, we simply need to do a couple of things. So first, we need to define the carbon, we need to measure the carbon, visualize the carbon, and of course, address the carbon. So how we're going to do this? This is where I want to show you how one of our Asite products, as part of 3D Repo, actually, we're able to calculate embodied carbon as part of the construction process. So I'll switch to my my layout here. I'll just switch to my platform just to give you an overview of how things are managed on 3D Repo. What are the end results that we are trying to achieve? So what we wanted to do actually is for us to be able to take the BIM models that are produced as part of the design process or any other process actually, so it works for design, construction, or any other stage. And we wanted to see how we can actually get data and actually calculate metrics in relation to embodied carbon and see actually how we can improve on the performance of the embodied carbon in our buildings. So this is an example of a model that I'm going to use for demonstration today. So this is a hotel building. And as part of the hotel building, this is the interface of 3D Repo. Again, 3D Repo is an online collaboration tool. So this is where you upload your models. And of course, you can collaborate with your teammates on the models. So we upload the models. And of course, we associate all the relevant information as part of the models as needed. And it will show you all of the data that is part of the model data, of course, that usually are mandated as part of your information requirements. So for example, in this example, I have my sustainability data, and I have my basic information regarding the elements themselves that include, for example, volume, material, any other, of course, metric that I need for the calculation. So what we simply are going to do is we're going to take this model and we're going to connect it with our visualization tool. In this case, it's Power BI. So 3D Repo does offer an API that integrates the BIM model on the web with a Power BI that will show you how, it will be a connection between these two. So if I go here, this is the end result. So via the API, very easily, I can just fetch my model from the web, fetch all the relevant metadata, and through this product or through this report, I'm able to calculate my embodied carbon. In this example, actually, we took the iStruct how to calculate embodied carbon example, and we followed the same factors that were used in the standard, and we just applied this on the materials that we have as part of the construction of this hotel building, and we came up with the total calculations of the embodied carbon that are contained within each of the, of course, within the material or the elements of the model. So how does this tool actually help you understand how things are working in your project? What is the total embodied carbon? Which materials are actually giving me the highest embodied carbon, and how can I tackle it? Can I, for example, switch to alternate materials? Can I do better design options, and so on? And of course, this dashboard is interactive. So for example, if you click on any element, you will see how this element is contributing, to your calculations. You can see all the different aspects of the embodied carbon calculations, the totals and everything. And so this gives you a much easier way to view your data. And of course, once you decide, for example, okay, my total carbon actually is 391, it's kind of high actually. So I need to tackle it and do better. So simply just do design iterations, very simply, just upload it again and just a quick refresh and to refresh the data on your report. So that is a tool that's actually very powerful and gives you like an instant method of looking at the embodied carbon that is contained within the project. Of course, we see it as being very helpful to design teams where they can actually decide on doing or having better decisions when it comes to selecting materials and mandating materials for the construction process as well. So I'll go back to my presentation now. So this is one of the products, another 3D report that we use actually to help us analyze the embodied carbon as part of our building. Another thing that actually we took another deeper look into, and this is actually one of the successful modules that actually implement across the region, is where we look at the different environmental metrics and how we can capture these environmental metrics. So we're going to look at energy management, water management, waste management, and material tracking. And how we're going to do this, we're going to simply collect the data and analyze the data through a dashboard report that collects the data and then display it to the teams. So just to explain a little bit on the process under this one, so how does this usually work? So typically the user will start initiating a form on Asite. So this is a standardized form that has different elements that capture almost everything that you might encounter in the project. They simply fill in this data. This data then is collected and analyzed through our dashboard. And of course, once this data is approved by the relevant teams, this data is sent, to the decision makers to monitor, to see the performance of the environmental metrics in their projects and to see if they can do better, in terms of how they can improve environmental metrics. So I'll show you now another product that we have on Asite. So this is my Asite product. So here simply, I'll just go. So as you can see, this is a standard Asite dashboard. So here we have the different dashboards that we are referring to. However, just let me very quickly show you how the data collection part is done on the system. So simply what we do is that we have these standardized forms on the system. So what we try to capture on these forms is we simply ask the users to very quickly add all the relevant project data. So this is the general data regarding the project, the stakeholders, project duration, areas that are required for calculation, etc. Then we have the different sections that will capture the environmental metrics that I've mentioned earlier. So we have a section where we're going to track our energy. We can see monitor our water consumption, see how we're managing our waste, and of course, tracking material. So we do implement each one of these forms, of course, at specific time periods where it's required by the client. Then we do capture these forms from different projects, whether it's a single project or multiple projects, it's going to work out the same. So we do implement these forms on the projects, and then we collect all of these forms and we display it as part of this amazing dashboard. So on this dashboard, this takes you through a quick overview of the environmental metrics on water, energy, waste, and material that are part of this project. So we do, from the data that is collected, and from the data actually we get lots of insight when it comes to these metrics that we want to track on site. So I'll give you examples of what we are currently tracking, but also we can always add to this one as required from the clients or as needed, of course. So first of all, this is where we are tracking our embodied carbon and how we're doing with regards to the carbon on the project. So of course, the team will add this data on the system, the data will be verified and improved, and then the data will be displayed here on the dashboard. So in this example, you see, for example, this is a portfolio of projects, by the way, so these are multiple projects. So you can see, for example, how my different projects are doing actually when it comes to carbon, and the embodied carbon. I'm calculating everything regarding the carbon. We are including filters for typology, And we can see also where is like what kind of element that's giving me the most embodied carbon. The cool thing, of course, about any visualization is it's quite interactive. You can just simply click, for example, on this example of a project and see how all the other aspects are doing as part of this project. So under the portfolio, we're capturing the embodied carbon and the all other elements, including the carbon intensity on the project. If I go to the second tab, this is where we are capturing our fuel consumption on the carbon. Again, all of these are based on the data that the project team has provided on site. So, for example, here we see on the fuel consumption by type, what is the relevant data that is emitted as part of the fuel consumption, and of course, how this is doing against a timeline that you can always refer to as well. All of this is giving you helpful insights to understand, for example, when it comes to energy and all other aspects, how your project is doing and performing. And of course, you can always filter by time. So for example, if you have a specific time period, you can always go here and do all of the calculation and you can find relevant calculations. So always you have the ability to filter by project, by type, by material, and of course, by a specific time zone. Moving on to the water management. So this is where we are going to look at our water consumption in our project. We're going to see what is the source of the water, the number of plastic bottles that I'm using on the system. And again, I'm able to filter this by the project and see how my specific project is doing, again, against the total water consumption and the total water management. And of course, we always capture the embedded the carbon emission that is part of this process as well. And we also have the waste management. This is we take a look at the total waste generated as part of my construction activities. And we start to look also at the recycling rates and metrics that has to do with this waste. So of course, it's going to include elements regarding recycling, material, wastewater, and of course, the carbon emissions that are contributing to these activities. So, and of course, we also have the material tracking. This is where I'm going to take a deeper look at the composition of the materials and their contribution to, again, the other elements that we're trying to track on site. So, for example, here we have like an idea about the volume of elements that we are using on site. We also can have a better idea about, for example, our concrete mixes and see, for example, okay, the composition of concrete is this way. Can I see if we can propose better changes or like better alternatives and use more greener material, how this will affect us. So these charts and this data, they always provide you with information how to do better on your projects, and of course decide, okay, if the performance still now okay, yes, no, how can I improve this performance, and of course try to do better, like during the remaining duration of my project. And also another aspect that in regards to the compliance of the stakeholders with this, we do also have a compliance tracker. This is where we ask our users on the system to track certain elements, and of course we do track their compliance. Again, this is a specified criteria, but it can be any criteria you wish to track. And this is where we start looking at elements like material compliance, environmental compliance, wastewater compliance. So all of this, once you have certain regulations, apologies. So once you have certain regulations, we can always track how these are doing on site, of course, and see what are the results when it comes to material tracking. So if I go back to my compliance. So for example, if I look at the compliance, I calculate an overall compliance on the companies, for example, that are part of this project. And as we've seen with a couple of our clients, actually, they use this compliance actually as part to decide on a better procurement process, or like to have to encourage companies to do better, via offering them incentives and rewards. So actually, this compliance is very effective, and just raising this push actually to have a better compliance when it comes to construction sites. So this is our dashboard that we are tracking of course, all the different aspects of the environmental metrics that I mentioned earlier. Just go back very quickly to my presentation. I'd like just to highlight that this model is currently being used by one of our key clients in our properties. So it's being implemented across more than 100 projects where they actually capturing the environmental metrics and reporting it and actually doing better decisions when it comes to procurement again and supporting the teams on site. So what are the key benefits that we're looking to achieve via, again, implementing better modules where we can actually track embodied carbon and track the different environmental metrics? So of course, it's gonna help everybody to work collaboratively on the system. So all the data is actually captured within one platform, and the data actually is analyzed through one platform. So data loss, data retention is always maintained on the platform. It's a very user-friendly tool. It's just a quick training, maybe, or just quick introduction, and you're okay to use the tool. It's fully compatible with Istidama and UN SDG, and of course, it can be compatible with other systems as needed. So it has this flexibility as well. Also, it's highly customizable. So again, we did include these main metrics that we wanted to track. But of course, if there are specific metrics that will depend on the project types, it's very easy actually to incorporate it both into the module itself and into the reporting. And of course, that will make the reporting on our ESG elements a much more efficient process, and it will reduce the time and cost and help us in the decision-making process. Now, of course, this is how we are building our module and using our module. Of course, it is crucial for us as construction professionals to start looking at how we can do better on when it comes to the environmental metrics and the embodied carbon. But of course, we should always keep this in mind, that we always should do better, whether it's you're using systems or you're doing a simple design or anything else. So we always have to make sure that at the end, we are actually considering the environment and considering the world, and trying to do better when it comes to improving the world we live in. And this is what we're trying to do as well in Asite. So using these modules, we're trying to build a network of connections, and projects where we can actually work collaboratively to enhance, how companies and of course how for example areas and regions are doing better when it comes to environmental compliance, and of course do better on the specifics when it comes to embedded carbon or an environmental metric. Of course, we're looking at enhancing the current offering and maybe start to considering the smart buildings, where we can actually track this real time on site using IoT devices and any other systems, smart systems that will enable us to get this data directly from site. And of course, we're considering also other modules where we take into consideration a more of an environmental approach or like a greenery approach, and so on. So we'll continue building on this one, and I hope that this presentation was beneficial for you. I really enjoyed this presentation. Let me know, please, if you have any questions, and I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rasha. So if anyone has any questions, just please type them in the Q&A box. I think I'm going to start with one, Rasha. So basically, you'll have on a typical building project, you'll have people working. The architect will produce his Revit model, and then so will the structural engineer, and so will the MEP engineer, and then maybe even the infrastructure engineer may use Civil 3D or something like that. So does this all get, do they upload models every week, and you get new dashboards every week, or how do you usually do it?
Yeah, actually, so since the models are connected on the web, so you simply just have to refresh the newest revision on the system, and it will just update on the web, and directly, via the API connection will update on the dashboard. So actually, you can do it weekly, you can do it daily as well, multiple times as well as needed.
Okay, so it's real time. Okay, very good. Yes. Okay, a question from Ramakrishna. What's the cost of your services? Maybe a separate email maybe would cover that.
We're more than happy to assist you with this one. We can connect you with our business development team, and they're more happy to assist. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Question from Biji Sarah Binu. Does Asite provide any benefits to students? Maybe if there's a student version that could be used, or a trial version, perhaps.
That's a lovely question. So, typically, usually we try to support our students as much as possible. So please reach out, and we'll do our best, of course, to support you as a student as needed.
Yes. Okay. From Ahmed, nice presentation and software, Rasha. Is the software accept all platforms such as Revit, Ecosim, Bentley, Tekla.
Yeah, it does actually. So the 3D Repo model viewer actually supports all your typical and also untypical BIM file formats actually. So yeah, it can accept everything.
Fully compatible. Good. Question from Mohammed. For particular aspects, who is uploading the environmental and sustainability information?
So this will depend on the process that and who is the end user of the system. So typically, so for example, I'll just give an example, but of course this can be customized as needed. So typically we'd have a client who would adopt this requirement, and they will share it with their, for example, consultants and contractors. So the contractors will be capturing the data, consultants will be approving this data, and of course it will go to the client again as part of as the main decision-making point in the process. But again, this is like the typical situation where you can find it. However, this can apply to you as a contractor, to you as a consultant, to you as an environmental consultant, as an independent consultant. So it's not confined with a specific process. It can be adapted, to however you want to use the system.
Okay. Yeah, project specific, I guess. Yes. Another question, interesting question. Can you run energy simulations on 3D Repo?
Can we run energy simulations? So I know we have a way to do it, but this is something that if we want to make it more as part of the system, we're looking into it actually. But of course, through certain scripting, we are able to do this. But again, to be it as part of the system, we just need a little bit to add to the final.
Okay, thank you. From Dara, are there any codes or standards on which the software is based?
Good question. Thank you very much. So again, as I mentioned, maybe in my last slide, so on our environmental module, actually, so we did standardize it, but we did consider the different standards. So for example, if you're using Istidama in your project, you can just simply apply the standard. We mentioned the UN standard as well. It also can be compatible with the BREEAM and LEED standard. So actually, it's quite flexible in this regard. You just need to decide on which standard you want to implement, and it can be easily customized to that standard and set up the standard.
Oh, okay, thank you. From Mohammed, what about design consideration for structures? I would guess that the design is done before the model, the Revit model gets uploaded, but does it have any design aspects?
When we consider the design, we can think about the 3D Repo product. So again, now, and typically any design will start, again, of course, at the initial stages, maybe that you won't have a model, but of course, once the model starts to come into place, where this is where you can upload it on 3D Repo and see how your model is doing with regards to your embedded carbon. So you can consider this at the very early stages of the project.
Okay. And from Matassim, he just says, just like the Green Building Studio or the Insight 360. I don't know if that's yeah, it just says just like the Green Building Studio or the Insight 360.
That's a comment, maybe.
Is there a comment? Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, this may have touched on this question before from Majub. How are these embodied carbon quantities are calculated according to which standard or code?
Yeah, my cats are interested in that. Yeah, so the example that I've shown you, actually, we've taken the iStruct and we followed the iStruct and how to calculate the standard from iStruct and how to calculate embodied carbon. So we've taken the factors and we assigned them, of course, to the materials. We calculated the volume and the density. Of course, we took the density and we calculated the mass from the volume of the materials. Again, this is the standard data that you get from your BIM models, and we came up with the calculations.
And then I guess as the structural member sizes or whatever changes in the model, then these calculations will get updated automatically.
Yeah, okay. Thinking about the 3D Repo API connection. So it's not only the visual or like the 3D model, the metadata that is contained within the element is fetched into the Power BI. So again, a simple refresh will refresh the whole page and the calculations.
Okay. Question from Shavik. Good presentation. Is this mainly designed for prime contractors and architectural consultants in construction? Can it be used in other industries like advertising?
That's an interesting question. Well, it depends, of course, on how you want to implement it. But of course, again, yeah. So, for example, if you take the environmental module, okay, it's mostly like geared towards the construction side. But for example, if your industry is, if you're interested in using this module and you understand what elements your industry is contributing, for example, under the environmental metrics, again, we can always include this as part of the module itself.
Okay. Okay, oh, one more question. Oh, there's a few more coming in. Good. What kind of technical support and training options are available for users of 3D Repo?
Amazing question. So we do have, so our support team actually is working 24/7 in case like any technical issues are faced, and usually the response time is very quick. So now, of course, 3D Repo is part of the Asite family. So this is the Asite standard when it comes to support and help. When it comes to the training, if you're interested, of course, once you reach out, of course, we can arrange for a training, to the teams. The cool thing about the products, they're usually very easy also to learn on your own. So actually, like just browsing through the help guide would be enough for you. But we're more than happy to offer you training as part of your product as well.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Can the embodied carbon values be utilized to obtain the EPD certificate? Say, for example, can the values be used in one-click LCA software for environmental product declaration?
That is a very interesting note, actually. And this is something actually we will look into, because this is a very cool note. Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. So actually, we can leverage our calculations to include this actually as part of this. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, if anyone has any more questions, it's quite good, 12 questions. So thank you very much. I think that's it. So again, just apologies to everyone for this lighter weight at the beginning of the presentation. I hope it didn't inconvenience you too much. And thank you very, very much, Rasha, for the very interesting presentation. And just a thank you note here. Thank you, Rasha, for the amazing presentation. It was great to see you. So thank you, everyone. And just keep in mind, you can there'll be a copy of the talk available on our YouTube channel by tomorrow evening, I would say. So with that, I think we'll bring the presentation to a close. Thanks again, Rasha. We'll see you again soon. Thank you, everybody.
Everyone, I really enjoyed the presentation today. Thank you. Bye-bye.